I want to start off by apologizing in case there's any weird background noise. As I'm recording, there's a storm outside, and it sounds like the lightning is very close. So, yeah, if you hear something, you know what it is. So anyway, on to the video. Hello, it's me, Minty. At the time you are seeing this, the excerpt for Ivypool's Heart has been out for a while, but at the time I'm starting on the script, it has just been released. I have read it now and have some things to say, but I'll start off just talking about Ivypool the character before going on to the contents of her super edition. Ivypool is a very beloved character in Warrior Cats, and she has been present for a long time, making her proper debut in 2009 with the release of The Fourth Apprentice. In Omen of the Stars, she played a big part in the story, being a main character and spying on the Dark Forest. For about as long as she has existed, she has been loved, and from what I've personally seen, the readers generally prefer her over her sister Dovewing, who's just not as badass or something. Yeah, in case you can't tell, I like Dovewing, but calm down, Ivypoolers, I like your girl too. A lot of people hold the opinion that she should have been one of the three, because she's cool and strong and did a lot more against the Dark Forest. While I really like Ivypool, I don't agree with that. A big part of her character arc was caused by the anger and jealousy she felt toward Dovewing. If you make her one of the three, you remove a big part of her character. If she never feels this jealousy, she never trains in the Dark Forest. And isn't this why so many like her? Because of what she did in there? Not being one of the three was better for her character and for the story. I know a lot of you don't like to admit this, but just because you like a character does not mean it will be a good idea to make them part of the three. Now, if we're talking about the fourth cat, I could be more open to the conversation, but I personally think it would have been better if it was Hollyleaf. It's just more fitting for Ivypool's character to not be part of any prophecy and to just do things because she wants to. After her time as the protagonist, she took more of a background role in the series, as is usual with some exceptions. I haven't read Bramblestar's Storm, but from what I understand, she's like any background character in that book. She now has an apprentice, Snowpaw, later Snowbush, even later an obligatory background sacrifice. Based on the wiki, she seems to be a good mentor, but I can't evolve any more on that based on what I read on the Warriors wiki. Her role becomes more important again in A Vision of Shadows. She becomes a mentor for the second time, this time to Twigpaw, who is one of the protagonists for that arc. It's clear she cares deeply about her new apprentice, and wants the absolute best for her. And we see how hurt she is when Twigpaw moves to SkyClan. These are the kind of things that are often missing in today's books, and it's nice to see someone having feelings. Ivypool is also clear in expressing her disapproval for the Dovewing Tigerheart ship as the two get back together after previously breaking up in Omen of the Stars. It's also in A Vision of Shadows that Ivypool finds love, as she becomes mate with a Tom named Fernsong, who is young and handsome, and also her second cousin. But, I mean, at this point, this is just a tradition in the series. Toward the end of the arc, in Book 5, River of Fire, they have three beautiful kits together, naming them Bristle Kit, Thrift Kit, and Flip Kit. Honestly, that first one is the only one who's worth remembering. At this point, Dovewing had left the clans to live somewhere else, and we see Ivypool become more accepting toward the fact that her sister wants to be with Tigerheart. But when Dovewing returns with Kits and reveals she's moving to Shadow Clan, Ivypool is furious. But in the next book, it becomes clear the reaction was more out of grief and shock, and we see Ivypool actually accepting Dovewing's choice to move to Shadow Clan and be with Tigerheart, now Tiger Star. I have to admit, I only listened to the audiobooks of this arc. I never actually read the books. I do have them in my home though, I just need to find the energy to pick them up. So I relied a lot on the Warriors wiki for this bit. However, I think I still understand the arc enough to give my comments. I really like this version of Ivypool, the one in A Vision of Shadows. She's more mature and understanding of the world around her than she was when she was younger. Yet the most important parts of her personality are still there. She's still the same character. She still disapproves of the dove-tiger ship, and she still shows you when she's mad. I love that it's a perfect balance of keeping the important bits of her personality from the cat equivalent of her teenage years, while still showing that she's significantly older now. I'd also like to make some comments on her relationship with Fernsong. I have only heard praise for Fernsong. There's no doubt this community really likes him, and I see why. He's so sweet and caring. Where I've seen more mixed thoughts is on the fact that he became her mate, and that they had kids together. Some people think that Ivypool shouldn't have gotten a mate and had kids, and that it somehow made her less badass and less independent. I think that we do need more major she-cat characters to remain romance-free, but it has to be for the cast whose story will be the best that way. I think personally that it was actually the right thing for Ivypool to get a mate and have some kids. After all she went through, I think it was good for her to find someone she deeply loved to spend the rest of her life with, and to have some chaotic furballs to raise. I'm sure it's different for human beings, but in warrior cats, entering parenthood just seems to kinda slow the characters' lives down a bit until their kids are grown up. And I think the slowing down was good for Ivypool. Her life had been so fast-paced and filled with chaos. First we have her anger about being treated differently from her sister, then she spends her nights in cat hell with the risk of dying, as in dying, as in not even her soul will exist. And she has to hurt cats and at one point even kill someone's spirit. Then comes the great battle, and we see her clan become absolutely devastated. If that wasn't enough, soon after that comes the great storm. Everything is again in chaos. And after that, things are fine for a while, but not for too long before Darktail arrives and ruins everything. So from the moment the series classified her as a person with feelings, her life has been drama after drama after drama. This literally started as soon as she became an apprentice. So for as long as she can remember, she has never been able to just breathe. After that, I think it was good for Ivypool to just be able to pause and focus on more positive things. She needed that break from the chaos. While parenthood isn't the answer for everyone in a situation like this, I think it was the right thing for Ivypool. Now that her kids are grown up, she's more active again, and her life is going back more and more to its previous fast pace. So I think it was good that she could just slow down for a bit before being in the middle of the action again. In Arc 7, to my surprise, she was not important at all. In fact, I'd say this was the arc where she played the tiniest part in the story. Why is this so surprising? Well, because one of her daughters is a main character. I think this is just another reason why I dislike the Broken Code, and I've already made a video about what flaw in the series caused this. During this arc, Ivypool wasn't mentioned in the books unless it was as a reminder that Bristlefrost has parents. In the Silent Thaw, Veil of Shadows, and Darkness Within, Ivypool and Bristlefrost didn't say a single word to each other. Had they not been related, Ivypool would have just been another Eagle Wing, just existing for the sake of existing. Fortunately, she played a bigger role in the place of No Stars and The Light in the Mist, and we finally got to see the involvement and care we should have seen from her in the first 4 books as well. In books 1 to 4, her role was mostly to be noted as Bristlefrost's mother, who also spoke once or twice per book. But in book 5 and 6, we see how worried she is for Bristlefrost. After Bristlefrost is killed, we see the grief both Ivypool and Fernsong go through as a result. But sadly I just cannot feel that bad for them, because I never got to see how close they were. They interacted with each other like 5 times in the first 4 books. It's not only the problem with Bristlefrost that I don't like with this arc when it comes to Ivypool's character, but it's also the arc with the most basic Ivypool. In A Vision of Shadows, we saw her as a mother, but most importantly, we saw her as her own character. She had her own personality. In The Broken Code, her only personality was being a mom. Her only appearances that didn't have anything to do with her children was when she gave Bumblestripe a glance during an argument between Thorkel and Lionblaze in Darkness Within, and in the place of No Stars, when she had a short argument with Lionblaze about Shadowsight. Oh, and also she wanted to hunt in the Silent Thaw. Very important. Can't forget that. Fernsong's character was also primarily as Bristlefrost's parent, but he got a few more scenes that had nothing to do with her. But he also got treated worse in the way that he was less present. Go to the wiki and compare his appearances in the last 2 books of the Broken Code to Ivypool's. And he apparently didn't appear even once in Darkness Within. Man, what is it with the parents and warrior cats? Either they're evil, crazy, or absent. No wonder half the characters constantly act like they have daddy issues. Going into Arc 8, A Starless Clan, it seems at first that Ivypool would remain irrelevant. Disappointing, but more understandable this time, as she isn't related to any of the protagonists. Or, well, she's Nightheart's second cousin once removed, which is closely related, but not close enough to be considered related in the Warriors world. The Starless Clan arc has only exposed more problems with the overpopulation and protagonist problem I addressed in this video, that you should 100% watch. Despite Ivypool being more irrelevant in the early part of the arc, I'm also glad that the appearances she had revived the personality that got lost in the Broken Code. In River, she's arguing about the code changes with some other senior warriors, and speaks in a way I've been missing from her. Unfortunately, she only had 2 appearances in this book, the other one being a minor mention during a gathering. For the next 2 books, Sky and Shadow, she doesn't have a speaking role. She goes on patrol with her husband and her father, and she has a second-hand appearance in the way that she's mentioned by Dovewing. Yeah, I told you as soon as she wasn't the main character's mom, she'd just become another Eagling. Maybe learn to listen to me, kids. But in Thunder, things change. Gone is her irrelevancy. Why? Because she was appointed deputy. From the moment she became deputy, she started appearing a lot more. If you're already on the Warriors wiki, because I told you to go on there earlier, scroll down the current arc and compare the first 3 books to Thunder and Wind. The difference is massive. I think the choice to make her deputy was a great one. Though I have to admit, I always imagined Squirrel Star would pick some random background character first who got killed off after like 1 book, and then would choose a more major character. What can you say? I'm always looking for ways to get characters killed. Having Ivypool be deputy is great because, first of all, this girl deserves it after all she has done for ThunderClan. Second of all, it gives an excuse to keep her relevant, and I think that's great since she's clearly here to stay and has so much more potential to give. Unlike Lionblaze, who could kick the bucket any time and no one would bat an eye. Be honest with me, does anyone care about Lionblaze? I think that Ivypool has done an okay job so far as deputy. Nothing noteworthy, but she gets things done. She organizes the patrols, she takes some other responsibilities she otherwise wouldn't have, like Sunbeam's trials, and she's shown to have an active role in discussing the Warriors' equivalent of foreign policy. Some deputies tend to still be pushed into the background, like Hawkwing in the Broken Code, even though he got a whole less super edition. But I hope Ivypool is kept in the foreground. She doesn't have to be the most important character, but make sure she's at least some degree of important. Her appearances in Wind were already a lot fewer than in Thunder, but I hope that trend doesn't continue too much further. I was about to say that I hope the trend wouldn't continue into Star, but then I remembered that she will be on a journey since her Super Edition takes place at that same time. And speaking of her Super Edition, we might as well get on to that. There's not much more to discuss about her in the already released books, so we might as well move on to that. After all, you most likely clicked on this video because you wanted to see me discuss it. So, the excerpt for Ivypool's Heart is out, and has been for a while. You already know since you clicked on this video, but if you didn't, you know now because I told you at the start of the video. And if you weren't listening, you still know because I just told you again. If you haven't read the excerpt, then go do that if you don't want to be spoiled. If you're not reading it and still don't want to be spoiled, why are you still here? Get out before I burn this book's horrific cover into your mind for eternity. With that said, let's go and discuss the excerpt's contents. After reading the excerpt, I have to admit that my feelings on Ivypool's Heart is mixed so far. I feel like things were missing from the text, and it just kind of felt empty and soulless. Of course, I first of all have a bit of a problem that we're doing this book in the first place. Not that the book exists, but the story of it. We don't need a whole disconnected story. Instead, this would have been a perfect moment to add some story to the Broken Code and the Starless Clan. A reason this book just feels unnecessary is because Ivypool never talked to Bristlefrost. So it's weird she's suddenly so depressed about the daughter she always forgot about. And in the excerpt, Fernsong talks about how he remembers her every paw step. Dude, you literally spoke to her 4 times! If I got to choose, the Super Edition would have taken place during the Broken Code and the Starless Clan. The first third or so would be mostly Ivypool being with Bristlefrost, showing some of their time together that we never got to see on screen during the Broken Code. That would really show us how close they were. The other 2/3 would take place during Ivypool's deputyship. That way we can see her heal maybe by interacting with her living family. How long has it been since she said a word to Whitewing or Birchfall? On top of that, the story taking place by the lake would also give us a look into the everyday life of ThunderClan that we've never gotten the time to see during this arc. And it would also give more story related to this arc's main plots. I understand if others don't like my idea at all, but I personally think it would have been the best way to go. But on the bright side, at least we'll get to meet a new cast of characters. That's actually a bit exciting. At the end of the day, my dreams of what it could have been will just be that. What it could have been. But I need to talk about what this book actually is and what it probably will be. So, if we go to that, I'll just start off by saying that despite me being a bit disappointed in the excerpt, there are things about it that I liked. The biggest one is about the theme that the book is clearly going for. Grief and healing. In the newer books, this hasn't been explored too much. And when it has, there's never been enough time to do it properly. So this is the perfect chance to pull it off in a great way. But I think it's important that they don't mess this up. If Ivypool just suddenly goes from absolutely devastated to completely fine within 1 chapter, it will be an absolute letdown. Another decision that I felt was good was to have Dovewing on the journey, and to bring her and Ivypool together again. It has been way too long since we saw them have a meaningful conversation. So I hope to see some good moments from them both in the book. It's also fitting with the theme of grief. Dovewing also lost a kid recently. So recently that she's no doubt still devastated. But as Ivypool pointed out, it's not the same. Because Dovewing will see Rowan-Kit again one day. Ivypool will never see Bristlefrost again. No matter how long she waits. Even if it's until her own spirit is faded. I'm curious as to how they will deal with Dovewing's grief, because it will definitely play at least some part in the story. All I hope is that however they choose to do it, they do it well. Another good addition to the story is Ivypool and Rootspring's nightly meetings. It's just a good way of showing how much Bristlefrost's death impacted them both, and how much they are both still suffering. Despite talking to each other for what seems to be multiple moons, they still seem to not be able to heal, so I'm wondering if their meetings are somehow holding them back from moving on. One of the other things I really liked in the excerpt was the dialogue between Fernsong and Ivypool. Seeing them in this book, you really understood why they're a couple. There's no doubt they're deeply in love, and there's no doubt they want what's best for each other. Fernsong comes off as a really good mate in the book so far. He knows Ivypool so well, and is still by her side when she hits rock bottom. He's really good for her, and it's obvious they're one of the better couples Warrior Cats has produced. While a lot of things in the excerpt were good, there were things in it that also brought it down for me, and overall I have to say, unfortunately, that going into this book's release in September, my expectations will be on the lower side. The journey started too early. I know it's weird for me to say that when I complained of the opposite problem in my previous video that you, again, should 100% watch. The journey started at chapter 3. It felt that the build-up to the journey was too quick and forced, and another 2 chapters were needed for the story to function properly. Had this been a main series book, I would have understood the rush, but this is a super edition. Not only that, a super edition that appears to be a lot shorter than most super editions. According to Goodreads, this book will only be about 400 pages long. Leopard Star's Honor was almost 600 pages if I remember correctly. If 2 or 3 chapters had to be added to make the story better, it really shouldn't have been a problem, because they had a lot of space they could fill up if they wanted to. And while this isn't really a negative about the book, the 5 cats on their journey were very predictable. I was sure I wrote down my guesses down somewhere, but I can't find them now. But basically, I predicted this exact cast. I must have put it down in some hidden document, because I do remember writing it down. That said, I'm not mad about this cast, they all have something important to the story. Ivypool, Dovewing, and Rootspring are all mourning devastating losses, and Icewing, on top of being the only relevant River Clan warrior who isn't evil, has also suffered a loss. Her son, Beetle Whisker, was killed in the Dark Forest. I mean, yeah, he still somehow lived on another arc, but the being dead thing finally caught up to him at the beginning of the Broken Code. I just hope the story team haven't forgotten about him. He was mentioned by Icewing in Darkness Within, so I have hopes that he'll be mentioned again. Especially since he died in the same way Bristlefrost did. He's gone. Gone. He will never come back, and Icewing has had to live with the same pain as Ivypool for years now. Whistlepaws had the same vision that created this journey, so she's going on as the obligatory medicine cat. I'm betting you that someone will get wounded later on, but will they die? Knowing warriors, they'd be too cowardly to do so, since everyone on the journey are important. I don't care if she was only put on this journey because she was a medicine cat, I'm just always happy to see more Whistlepaw content. As for how I'm feeling about the journey itself, it's too early to judge. It just started and we haven't seen nearly enough yet to determine how good it is. But based on the blurb for Ivypool's heart, I think we can all guess that things will happen. Going back to the negatives though, the biggest problem I had with the excerpt is the writing itself. Not a specific event, not someone being out of character, but just the writing. A lot of it seemed a bit first drafty, and like it just needed to be gone through one more time. I felt a little too detached reading this, and that's not a good sign. Here are some examples of the kind of writing I'm talking about. While the contents of the text clearly serve a purpose, it just feels unfinished. It needs to be polished some more. I can't point out exactly what brings the text down, but there's something about it that's not really right. It's not only the first draftiness of the text, it's also about how underestimating the book is of its readers. It feels like the authors think we're dumb and have small brains. Part of the fun in reading is being able to fill in some of the blanks yourself and interpreting the text in different ways than the others who read the same book as you. But this excerpt left nothing to be read between the lines. Here are some examples. Look at the third quote, from a conversation between Ivypool and Fernsong. To be more clear, it's Ivypool's thoughts on about what Fernsong said. How could she sense what Fernsong actually meant? And why couldn't the readers be left to interpret that for themselves? Why do we have to be told that Fernsong cares about Ivypool? What happened to show don't tell? Can't we get to determine for ourselves if Fernsong actually cares about her? It's like the authors and the story team are afraid of the readers not interpreting the text in the exact way they want us to. But I think that's dumb. Not only because filling in some blanks for yourself improves reading comprehension, which we need more of since that has been on the decline for the past few years, but also because interpreting a book in different ways creates conversation. And that's good for both readers and authors. It's good for readers because it lets us debate about something we're passionate about, and it lets us share the ways we interpreted certain dialogue. And then we talk to others. And when we talk to others, they could point out something in the text that we didn't know could be seen that way. And we could read in the future with more perspectives in mind. Again, reading comprehension. And it's good for the authors because the discussions keep their books relevant and make it so the hype doesn't die down as much before the next release. Why do people love to talk about Ivypool and Dovewing in Omen of the Stars? Well, because there were enough holes to be discussed with different perspectives. Some may think Ivypaw was right to be mad at Dovepaw, while others think she wasn't. But even still in a vision of shadows, you can interpret stuff for yourself. Some may think Dovewing was right to join Shadow Clan because her happiness is most important, while others think she's dumb for getting with that jerk Tigerheart and then abandoning her clan for him. The text in this excerpt didn't leave any room for discussions like that. It made it clear how we were supposed to interpret the text. We can also see this in the quote about Hairstar. Okay, he's calling Splashtail by his leader name because he doesn't want to cause trouble. Ivypool can read his mind now, apparently. To be fair, this was very obvious, but to be unfair, if it was so obvious, why couldn't we have gotten to fill in that blank ourselves? Listen, I know these books are for children, but the story team needs to know the readers, because the writing in these chapters were honestly just insulting. Children are smarter than you think. Most of the time. They understand more than we give them credit for. Take this from me, a former child. The writing wasn't like this before, it's like they dumbed it down, and this time they just hit a new low. Reading comprehension is on the decline, and making the writing worse isn't really helping the problem, only making the experience worse for the people who actually like this series. I hope this was just a problem with the first few chapters, and that the writing gets better, but something tells me that will not be the case. Moving on, I'd like to talk about something I'm actually very hopeful for. Ren x Root! In the very first chapter, we learned that Renflight has a crush on Rootspring, and during the gathering in chapter 2, we find that the crush is painfully obvious. Equally painful is also the fact that they called her grey and white, despite the fact that she has been a golden tabby for over 5 years now. Oh, holy shit, Lost Ark was released 5 years ago! If there's something we should all know about the story team, it's that they never do something for no reason. They want to do something with Renflight, and you can bet I'm excited! Because this will touch on another thing Warrior Cats hasn't brought up much. Moving on. More specifically, moving on with a new partner after losing your previous one. This is a subject I think is desperately needed. It can end up so good if done right, and it's a subject people can relate to no matter their age. An adult reading this series might have lost their partner and feel guilty about getting with someone new. And a child who has lost their parents might have complicated feelings if their living parents start dating again. So this is a really good subject to bring up that readers can relate to. Now, this is a very out there theory, but if the story team is making a plan about Rootspring moving on, which would be fitting considering this book's theme, they would have to give him and Renflight some time to be together. So what if she's been sneaking behind the journeying cats this whole time and joins them when it's too late to send her back? It's not impossible. After all, Icewing also followed them, and it took quite a while for her to be discovered. This would be a perfect way to show Rootspring finally moving on from Bristlecrost's death, and in the process, maybe fall in love. I just always had a feeling since Bristlecrost died that Rootspring would move on one day, and I feel that now is the right moment. They have the pages, they have the character, they have the excuse, and they have the heavy hinting. Not making Rootspring and Renflight a couple is a missed opportunity. Are you watching this, errands? You better listen to me. Make these to a couple now! Since I brought up things concerning Bristlecrost, I should mention something important. Do not bring her back. This was slightly hinted in the excerpt, but this would be an absolutely terrible decision. One of the reasons her death struck the community so hard when it first happened was because she's gone. Completely gone. We won't ever see her in a prophetic dream or in some random prologue. She's gone forever and is never coming back. Having her not be gone would ruin her death, and Spotted Leaf's death, and the death of all other spirits that died. Sometimes tragedy is good. It gives us the feeling that bad things can happen at any moment. If you take away risks, the series becomes boring. Moving on to another topic, I wonder who the strange animals are and how they're important to the clans. I hope they actually do something with this. So much has been restricted due to canon, but this story is completely new, so the story team could take a lot of creative liberty here. That's one of the small things that bring me hope for this book. I really don't have a guess to what this is. I wonder about the kids from the prologue. Why are they important, and why did those cats leave them? Just a bunch of questions. And one last thing. This concerns the main series. A lot of people, including me, have at some point theorized that Icewing will become leader. But now she's on the journey and it's taking place during Star. She can't become leader if she's gone, right? So does that mean she's out of the running? I think it's over. Icewing Bros. And that was all I had to say for today. I'm not joking when I say this ended up a lot longer than I expected. I thought it would be maybe around 10-15 minutes, but now it seems it'll be around half an hour at least. I won't know until I'm recording, but yeah, this is definitely something you should have a snack with. Maybe dumb of me to tell you this at the end of the video, but now you'll know for when you inevitably rewatch in the future. Despite my negative feelings towards the excerpt and low expectations, I'm still looking forward to reading this book. And I feel like there's still some hope that it can recover. But I'm not going to hope too much, cause then I'll inevitably get disappointed. I'm sure you have your own theories and feelings about this herb edition, and your opinions about Ivypool as a character. Please feel free to express yourself in the comments. I read everything written under my videos, no matter how long, wrong, or stupid your comment is. And more importantly, don't forget to subscribe. This is not a question. Subscribe.
Or sleep with one eye open tonight.